Hello everyone! Today's tip is something that most of us are already aware of, but yet we still tend to neglect it in our daily lives. And it's actually the very first thing that we're willing to sacrifice whenever we have a little less time in our day. I'm talking about sleep. And sleep is such a beautiful gift that's been given to us. When we're sleeping, our body is actually recharging itself, and every cell in the body is recharging and preparing us for the next day. When we're sleeping, our body is releasing all the stress that we've collected over the period of the previous day. And sleep even keeps us away from most illnesses because it strengthens our immune system. So when our body is actually resting and restoring itself throughout the night, our brain is actually collecting and consolidating all the new information that we would have gathered the previous day. And it's taking that time to make new memories from that information. And I'm sure that the scenario that I'm about to describe is going to sound really familiar for most of you. So it's midnight and you have a test the following morning. And you suddenly realize that you have an entire chapter of your book that you have not read for your test. So you switch on the lights, you open your book, and you start to just cram all that information from that chapter into your brain, and you spend the entire night trying to read, trying to memorize all that content. Though this seems like a good idea at that time, but when you are at the exam hall, none of that content will come to you and you won't have remembered any of that information. That's because you didn't give your brain the chance to collect and consolidate and store that information into your long-term memory. So just like most students do, when my exams were coming close, I would start to sleep for a very limited number of hours because I would be trying to have as much time to consume and intake all that information from my study materials. But at the end of the day, this only impaired my ability to remember, to memorize, and to retain that information effectively. A 19th century psychologist, Hermann Ebbinghaus, actually performed many experiments on how memory works. And he discovered that the majority of newly consumed information is actually lost within the first hour of learning it. And then a further 60% is lost within the next 9 hours. And this concept is also demonstrated in the forgetting curve, which is a representation of how there is a decline in memory as time passes by. And this decline only happens when there is no attempt to recall or retain that data. And if you're interested in knowing more about this concept, you can watch my previous video in which I talked about the art of revision and how you can effectively store information in your long-term memory. There are many factors which contribute to how fast our brain forgets newly consumed information. And one of the very major factors is sleep. Sleep actually takes up 1/3 of a person's lifetime. And yet so few of us give it the importance that it deserves. So the part of our brain that is mainly responsible for learning and memory is the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is actually responsible for consolidating the newly collected information and retaining it in the long-term memory. And when we're sleep deprived, the hippocampus is not able to form those long-term memories at its best. So therefore, to make the most out of the time that you are spending studying is to ensure that you are sleeping an adequate number of hours. And not only that, you need to also make sure that your sleep is restful. And the indication for restful sleep is that when you wake up, you will feel fulfilled, you will feel refreshed, and you will feel ready to start your next day. Because the number of hours can vary from day to day. So you need to make sure that your sleep is restful and you feel refreshed when you wake up in the morning. Getting restful sleep will ensure that your brain will have enough time to collect and retain the data from the day before, as well as prepare you for the next day. And sleeping for enough hours not only gives you the energy to function, but it also enhances your ability to focus on any given task. So don't lessen the number of hours that you spend sleeping just to get more hours in your day, because this will reduce the quality of learning that you are able to perform throughout the day. And in my experience, the moment I started sleeping restfully, I noticed that I was able to focus so much better, and I was able to retain any given information much faster and with ease. And that's because I was giving my brain enough time to consolidate and retain all the data that I was giving it. I am sure that as soon as you start sleeping restfully, you will notice that you are able to retain and understand information much better, and you are able to perform well in every area of your life. And in my upcoming videos, I will be sharing more tips on how to sleep restfully. Because what matters most is not whether or not we're sleeping, but in fact, whether our sleep is restful or not. I will also be sharing more about the circadian rhythm, which is about how our body is actually designed to sleep at a certain time. And if we do sleep at that certain time, we are optimizing our performance in our life. That is all for today. I will see you all in my next video. Until then, be happy and be joyful.